All right, welcome everybody to today's webinar. Today we have a very exciting guest who's going to be talking to us about incorporating VR technology in the classroom to ensure student success. Um, First off, if we could proceed to the first slide. And hello, this is Amanda Thompson from MindLabs. She's going to be our guest for today. Hello, Amanda.
Hello, Jake. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, no, no problem, no problem. Yeah. Today, in particular, Amanda Thompson being our guest here, she is a startup founder and CEO at MindLabs. She is an award-winning educator. She has a master's and PhD from Purdue. So, from one person with a master's and PhD who went through grad school to another, awesome, and also boiler up. Uh, she is the mother of two teenagers, and she is a soccer player still. I'd like to welcome Amanda Thompson to the front stage here. And without further ado, here is our webinar for today.
Well, once again, appreciate the introduction. And I, as the startup founder and CEO behind MindLabs, am super excited because I'm always looking for opportunities to share the work that we've done in the STEM education space. So where I wanted to start today is with a visualization. I'm really big on visual learning and experiential learning. So I wanted to start off just by showing you what the product looks like, because a picture's worth 1,000 words. So our topic for the day is going to be making the invisible visible. And that actually crosses a couple of our multiple places within our platform. So it goes from the augmented reality portion, where we can see things that are happening in those STEM systems that you couldn't see with the naked eye, all the way through to talking about all the different inputs that the system collects through the students that helps the teacher see things about the student's process and their mindset as they're working through it, that can help the student be successful in more of a whole student framework. So when we're talking about physical, social, emotional, and academics, STEM is really the ideal place to address all of those areas of development for students and help them grow. So with that, let's go and take a look. I'll kind of narrate over the video so know what you're seeing here as we work through it. So you see a tablet here. So it is augmented reality, doesn't require glasses, just has a tablet basis. And the students manipulate these physical cards, which are, it's being a little chunky for us here. But as they move the cards, they can add pieces into their design. They can collaborate on the same device, or if they're they also can work as teams from separate devices and be working on the same engineering or STEM assignment. So we really think that it brings a good engaging STEM experience where you can do a lot of animations and explain vocabulary, and they can try things out. But it's also a kind of an easy setup and cleanup for those of you who have some limited space. And I know everybody has limited time when they're in the classroom. So that's a good peek at what the experience looks like when you're working with MindLabs materials. So to summarize, we'll go up to the next slide. To summarize, we are really looking at a way to empower everyday and engaging STEM. So everyday meaning that the process to get it going, to get it out, to get it distributed to the students, to use it, to get it picked up and put back away is very feasible and efficient for you as an educator, but also it still delivers that engaging hands-on experience that we know is maximal learning for STEM students. So what does that mean? It means you need a tablet device in your classroom to use it, and a set of cards. So the set of cards are unit-based. So I'll have a slide here in a minute that'll show you what that might look like. And here is an example of what the student's screen would look like as they are interacting with one of our units, the force and motion unit. So the students take their tablets, they aim it at the card. You can see it on the left side of the screen. They're looking down at that card. When they look at that card, it spawns this environment around it where they have added in their own pieces. Now you can see from this unit that what the students are doing is adding in different simple machines, so wheel and axle, pulleys, inclined planes. We also have a spring down in there, which I know is not a simple machine, but it is we call a starter piece. And the ball drops down into the course and maneuvers through this series of simple machines, and the student's trying to score a soccer goal. So you can probably see, if you follow the track of the ball there, that it is going to end up and score, and that's going to be a successful design for this student as they're working through it. So that's the augmented reality piece. Now, we've worked really hard to have standard aligned lessons that go with all the content inside of the app. So there's discussions, there's slides, there's helper videos in some of the units, and there's design projects that are aligned with the content that you've covered. So they're super flexible lessons. They can expand and contract to 30 minutes up to 2 hours for each of the lessons, depending on how far you go into the creative elements of the assignment. So yeah, so let's move on then and look at the other side. So this is the AR piece, which is super fun and engaging for students. But on top of that AR experience are the other petals of our flower that we're going to be looking at again here in a minute for our whole child, where we're looking at the opportunity for students, while they're in the middle of this engaging experience, to also be giving feedback to their teammates, which also flows to you as the teacher. Can give readiness check-ins. So we'll show you each of these in the next couple slides, so they can tap on that. And as well, very importantly, they can document their results and reflections as they're working through the process by tapping on the notebook icon that's in the top right corner. So this is really bringing together the power of STEM, but having it all available in a streamlined, integrated place, so that the time required to do that is super efficient for educators, and it gives a richer experience. We had some educators running through the content in the spring of this year, and one of the comments they gave back to us was they'd always done STEM, but they'd never gotten so much out of the STEM projects that they were doing. And I think that goes to all the documenting and all the thinking through and reflecting that's possible without really disrupting the other things that the students are doing. So the other bonus of that is that all of that flows very nicely and into some pretty neat packaged analytics and ways to access that information to give educators the impactful insights on what's happening with their students as they're working on it. So I'm going to bring up next our kind of model of that whole student, and how we think that what we've worked on really allows you to address the whole student in these factors. Now, I know everybody has their own precise definition of this, so we narrowed it down to these 4 petals of our flowers. So the physical experience, we've shown you the augmented reality and how the kids are actually moving around cards, tapping the screen, dragging across the screen to build their own designs. We have within the augmented reality kind of 2 big parts that the lessons are anchored out of. We have a component that we call challenges, where these are already set up activities for the students, where they're doing troubleshooting or fixing or adjusting traits or adjusting the variables of their systems and seeing what happens, or trying to meet a specific goal. So those are very small movements that the students make. So it's focused to help them understand a specific principle. For example, we saw at the beginning a circuits lesson. And in the circuits unit, one of the things is identifying when you have a short circuit. So when they go into a challenge, they have an opportunity to look at a circuit and diagnose where the short circuit occurs and remove it and repair or troubleshoot their circuit. The other area of the app, which is also incorporated in lesson plans, is very open-ended and creative. So they have an objective. So when we were looking at the force in motion unit, we saw that the students were trying to score a soccer goal. One of the design experiments that we have is setting up all those pieces to generate what would be described as a pinball machine. So that's really fun. Now, on top of that ability to build these fun, creative systems out of the different units we have, they also are in that creative space allowed to, or it is enabled for them to come together with their group. So multiple teammates from different devices or the same, you saw some of the students sharing devices, can work together and collaborate on these these creative opportunities, and they can be quite challenging. So it is a true requirement for them to collaborate in an effective way so that they can get to some solutions and fail a bunch too as they get there, and on the way be accountable to all those work ready skills that we know are big talking points right now for education, is trying to build a bunch of the social capabilities of our students. So collaboration is absolutely one of our main factors that we emphasize, and we kind of haven't seen any other tools that are able to do some of this, the collaboration analytics and measurements that we are going to show you here in a minute that go with that petal of our flower, the social petal. We also have a ability for the students to do a readiness check-in at any point in time. So the students can always tap on a place that allows them to enter their zones of regulation. Where are they in terms of their readiness to learn? That flows to you immediately as the educator so that you can be informed on any action or intervention that you want to deploy, or kind of get a sense over time or across the team how the dynamics are going. And I know right now you're like, wow, how does that happen? It's too good to be true, right? Well, I'll show you in just a minute what it looks like. And the last piece, and we're just as proud of this last piece, is the notebooking part. So when we first worked on the product, we had developed the AR, but a lot of our lesson plans incorporated some notebooking, but there was a lot of shuffle back and forth. And we really wanted to enable the students to just right away, easily, synchronously document what they were doing, what any reflections that they had, and have it come together in a pretty nice format on the back end. So that's what we have. We have the ability for the students at any point to open up their notebooks, to take a photo. It's a really neat little screenshot of their AR space, log some reflections about it, and send it on through. They also have spaces where they can do things like define the roles, see what their teammates are saying about the roles, and even look at design processes or scientific process, or the collaborative process, or some guidance around those different processes that are utilized in their work. So the MindLabs platform really is a tool that can be used for the AR components and assignments that we have put together, but also is adaptable across any hands-on or collaborative project in the classroom, because it also can use these green, purple, and pink petals towards any physical engaging collaboration that you have in the class. And I see Caleb has asked what grades. Our lessons are currently triggered for or aimed towards grades 3 to 5. So that's the target area for the AR lessons. But the notebooking, the emotional check-ins, and the collaboration tools, like I said, can be used with any STEM project that you're doing in the classroom. So it doesn't have to be our lessons. You can use the tool with any of the projects that you're working on. And I'll try to speak to that too as we get to those various different pages and looks about how students interact. All right, well, that's the only question I see so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to each of these petals, and we're going to start with the orange one, which is the physical component. And just to give you a sense of the units and the content that we have built up, we have 2 units that are really out there in the wild, ready to go, and we have 2 units that are almost there. So we right now have energy and circuits and forces and motion. Those are the 2 that you saw. The energy and circuits kind of has a robotic theme, robotic characters that go with it, a story, kind of like a comic book storyline kind of goes with that. The Force in Motion is actually more of a sports theme, and it has mascots as the central storyline that goes with it. So Reggie, the mascot. Our 2 new units feature 2 twin robots, so they're kind of in the same universe if you're familiar with that kind of structure. So our 2 twin robots, Echo and Delta, are the hosts of our other 2 units, the Habitat and Adaptation. And so this will be your first look at that. We have students add animals into habitats and try to adapt their traits so that they survive, and they can test whether or not they do survive. This particular little mammal is not too happy right now in the tundra, so he'll need some adaptation before he's happy. And then the last one is Echo, who's in the lights and sound unit, which covers waves. So that one actually has a theater orientation to it. So you're setting up the stage to tell stories, and you can see this one's actually showing what it looks like when the simulation is running. So you can see different light waves going around. You can see the wavelengths. You can see there's spotlights, there's speakers, there's backdrops, there's all kinds of fun things. There's a lot going on this stage in this bottom left corner. So those are the 4 units that we currently have in that augmented reality space: standard aligned, storyline motivated. Now, I also wanted to show you just a little bit more what it could be done if it's paired with some physical or hands-on other projects. So this is actually an image that takes the AR content and overlays it onto what the student has built. And this is actually an implementation at a junior achievement site. So it's a very fun implementation. There's just a couple of wooden blocks in there, and they've combined it with a unit on sports marketing. So they've sold branding for the Purdue basketball court and used that alongside the AR. And you can take pictures of other these physical experiences and translate them into your notebook and have the same process documenting. So again, this is actually quite a complex little course that this student has put together, where you can see the very creative ways to get the basketball to travel the length of the court and hopefully score a basket at the end. It is harder to get the ball in the basket than the goal. And that's not just because I'm more of a basketball player than a soccer player. But this is an example of that course. Now, the next slide is going to show us what happens if we start tapping the buttons. But I thought this was kind of a natural break point, because this is where we're going to transition from the STEM content area into kind of all the other elements of the platform that overlay that hands-on STEM experience.
So I actually did have a question. So I remember when I was growing up, when I was a kid, like VR was very much in its infancy, and it was more so a novelty, more so than anything. But since then, it's grown into such a powerful teaching tool, and augmented reality, having that physical aspect where you're mixing virtual reality with real life. Not only do you get the benefits of having the VR experience for the students, but they get to do that hands-on sort of project-based learning activities, again, physically with their hands. How did you guys come up with the original idea of orienting these curricula around AR?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, because when it comes to startups, a lot of times they're started by really technical people who try to fit the round peg into the square hole. But that wasn't the case for us. We actually were more of educator people that identified the problem and decided that AR might be a technology that could solve it. So my co-founder and I kind of recognized he was actually working first in high school materials, and the high school teachers kept telling him that they needed to start earlier. And so moving kind of backwards in the timeline, which we know is true from research, that it's really critical that we get these kids' minds turning on these topics early and get them excited about it early. But the problem was, and this is, I hope I get a yes ma'am in the chat from that. But the problem is these in the elementary school spaces, especially if you're not a STEM special, if you're a classroom teacher, you don't have the space to have these elaborate STEM things up. You don't have the storage. You're trying to manage the materials. It's really difficult to have a regular STEM hands-on experience. And so what we saw, a couple things about the augmented reality, is it could still feel hands-on, which I think you can again read the research that the students do have that. In fact, the digital plus the physical is the best combination. If you compare to either alone, digital or physical, the combination gives you the best results.
Best of both worlds.
So yeah, that was a component of it. And then also that the classroom devices. So is it something that's already in the classroom? And that's where we went towards augmented reality instead of virtual reality to hopefully leverage those classrooms that have the tablet devices. Now, I will say, if you're Chromebook people, which I'm sure, I mean, there are Chromebook people everywhere, right? A Chromebook classroom. We are going to be releasing before the end of this year all of these components except the AR for a Chromebook implementation. So maybe you just have a couple of iPads in the classroom, but the rest of the students can be doing everything else via the Chromebook, including documenting their results and giving teammate feedback and all of that stuff as well. So it is Chromebook compatible in that sense, except for the AR. And trust me, we wish the Chromebooks could do the AR, but so far that's a limitation of the device.
Very cool. Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about your guys' product so much is that you have the cards and the kit, and you have iPads, which most teachers already have in their classroom, and the rest of it's virtual, and you're not taking up that precious storage real estate in your classroom. It makes it just fit in really nicely with pre-existing technology.
Jake, I'm glad you said that, because this is a unit set right here. This is the size of it. So this goes for all the students. They work in groups together or they share the cards, and this is all it takes. It's like the size of a book, right? For one unit for all your students. That's all it takes.
We have another question from a viewer. They were asking how do you differentiate between VR and AR? And I think you here are the expert on this, so I'll let you take over.
I'll do it. So VR is typically described as the ones where your view is completely blocked from the real world, and you're kind of, in my opinion, a little bit isolated from your classmates because you really can't see anything except the digital interface. So you're completely in that digital world. Augmented reality is, you're looking at your phone or your tablet, but you're still out in space talking to your teammates, looking around, and you literally are seeing those digital materials appear in your home landscape. So like in this picture that's up there, yes, in this instance, because the JA people are using this regularly every day, they have a cool little sticker that's on the table that's there. But all the rest of it, the little the cards and things like that are just, they're sitting there on the table, and the images are appearing within that live environment with your classmates there with you, and where you can see and interact. That's the difference. All right, and is that, I don't think I've missed any questions yet. All right, so the experience is really cool, but the students are also doing everything on this tablet. So every tap that they're doing kind of flows through into you on the teacher dashboard side. So this is where we have these additional really unique things and insights that you can gain from your STEM experiences. And I think one of the things that's true even for us as adults is that collaborating on difficult tasks can be quite challenging for everyone involved. So let's go to the next slide and see what comes across to you when the students tap one of those buttons. So let's say they tapped let's say you're the student that's working and you've tapped on my button, the Amanda Marie button, and you've tapped on the effort. So you're going to give me feedback on effort. Now, this is what would have been happening on your iPad screen. The backlay is what the teachers are going to see after the data comes through. But you can give me a thumbs up, I'm doing great, or a thumbs down that I need work on effort. Now we know that happens. And what happens from there is that if the student has clicked that you're doing great, over on my iPad, I get this little burst that says, somebody says you're doing great at effort. So I get that reinforcement. If it says, I need work, that doesn't come across to me directly, but it comes through to you as the educator. So this screen is showing what we call kudos. And what you see here is actually a classroom view. So we see all of the assignments, and then the different sets that kind of have the three colors are for the three different assignments that they've worked on: lesson 1, lesson 7. I think it says maybe lesson 5 there as well. And these are the bar graphs for the communication, effort, and teamwork. So purple being communication. You can look at the little legend there, orange being effort and pink being teamwork. And the darker color of the bar is showing the proportion that were thumbs up. And the lighter color of the bar is the proportion that were thumbs down. So most of our classmates are sending over positive kudos, again, that it's reinforcing good behaviors to their teammates. And if we look across them, we can also see that some of the assignments had almost entirely all good kudos or thumbs up for their classmates versus thumbs down. And so that's the faded color versus the dark color. And we're going to go through and see a couple of analytics shots that kind of have this same framing, but in each one of these analytics that I'm going to show you, you can really drill down and see them at different levels. So I can go down into the assignment and see across groups. I can go down into groups and see across things. If you're an admin, you can actually see across classrooms. So all of these are really kind of a neat and easy way to click down and get to this intuition about how your students are working together. So we can see this, what they sent, and also what they've received in terms of these kudos or collaborative metrics that they can send across. Now, this one is self-reported, so maybe there's some interesting results that come through from that. Mostly we see positive. The next page is another collaborative metric that really speaks to the combined effort of the groups. So this one is what I've done on this one is actually drilled down one layer deeper. So within a classroom, I went to a specific assignment. So it looks like lesson 7. And I've selected, instead of kudos, that I want to see what's happening when they're in that AR app realm. And so this is showing me a breakdown of how active the students are from the different groups. And this is in their AR space. So the pink section of the bar is going to show how often the students from these groups have gone in and written an entry into their notebook. So we can see that some teams have been quite prolific with up in the 20s or maybe 30s of notebook entries, and other teams have more like 5. And we can see that right away and maybe prompt those student groups to be more active if they need to be. We can also see the purple, orange, and black are types of activities within the app. So the yellow or the orange, whichever you call it, is where you add the students have added pieces into their designs. The purple is where they've done some modifications to their designs, and the black is where they delete it. And we think it's important to have all of those elements because it helps you understand. We can see that the effort that each group has put into the assignment. So we kind of have an overachiever going on in group 2. They're really making a lot of progress and building a lot of different items without a lot of deleting. So they probably have a really complex, course set up that they've been working on. And we can see others that may not be as much on task, like group 10, and we can see immediately what they're doing. We can also, drill in and look at each group individually and have this same picture for the team members. So I don't have a slide on this, but imagine that this instead is talking about different team members within the team. We can see who's maybe one team member's dominating and they've done a preponderance of the activity. So they've kind of really been taking over the activity. Now you have some tangible evidence to work with that student and say, you know what, I can see you're putting great effort into this. Let's work on your leadership and collaborating skills. Next time, let's see if we can break this down a little bit and have your teammates contributing more. And your goal will be to, have Alice do more of the work than you do and help that kind of spread that work, or meet with a teammate that maybe isn't as contributing as much and encourage them to do more. If you maybe have a little mischievous student, I was going to say troublemaker, but I like mischievous better. A mischievous student who you see a really large black bar, that means all they're doing in there is deleting everybody else's work and causing havoc. But now you have those kind of like cookie crumbs to see how that activity transpired. And another cool one that I don't have at all in here is there's an ability to see exactly how a little animation of how the course built up, like piece by piece, because the system preserves all that information to kind of reconstruct that learning process. So this level of digging into collaboration and the contributions of each team member, we think is something that's really unique and really valuable within that task that educators have of bringing along students on this collaboration metric. All right, so next up would be if you instead, as the student, tap on the U button. So this button and this capability is actually something that can be independent of STEM assignments completely. It could be an assignment that the educator has set up for every day for the students to come in and just log how they're doing when they come in at the bell. Come in, tap your U button and give me a sense of how you're feeling when you come in the door. So for this one, we've seen the student has tapped their U button, tapped the green square, and what's popped up on their screen is the ability to pick through happy, calm, focused, and ready to learn. And they're going to tap that calm button. So now we're looking again at the analytics screen, which is looking familiar now. And now it's telling us about which of these zones the students are in. And we can see how, again, there's different slices of how you look at it. So we're looking at it within maybe an assignment and looking at the groups within an assignment. And, I might call Jake back in this, but I think that everybody would probably answer this question the same. But is there a group on this graphic that you want to know more about? Does anyone want to type in the chat which group they want to know more about if they looked at this graphic? I'll give you a hint that the red color is mad, angry, frustrated, and yelling. Is there a group we want to look more at, Jake?
If I'm looking at this correctly, I would say group 4.
Group 4, we'd want to dig in and see what was going on in group 4. So do a click to say, hey, filter me down to group 4. We'll see that on the next slide. And if we look at group 4 up on the top right, now we've zoomed in and now we're at a student level. This group has 2 students in it. And it seems that one of them might need a little bit of a reset at this point. So we can see that immediately that the source of this is one student that's for some reason or another having a rough go of it, and we can immediately go over and intervene. Now, maybe the student is one that's very overt in their emotions, but maybe the student is a quiet, angry student. And it's really cool to have these tools that alert you, or that you can kind of be able to identify that issue is going on. And we also see probably that the blue is also coming from this team, And, people that are targets of anger sometimes don't feel very well about it either. So that might be the source of some of that. The point being that it gives us really clearly some guidance on helping students navigate these challenging assignments. We have a educator that works with us who's a PhD in STEM education and a STEM coordinator at her school, and she talks about times where students get so upset that they start throwing their materials, not necessarily our materials, but throwing their materials. And if we can intervene before that happens, because we can see it coming with some of these metrics, that would be a really great thing to be able to do. Now, I think that we have one more slice on this data if we click to the next one. Right. So what you can also do is look at students across time. So this is actually pulling out to that one student, to the looking across those different lessons and seeing. I think I misspoke about that. I think this is at a classroom level. So now we're looking at a classroom level of how the students were feeling about the assignments. And we can see that the students had a little bit more struggle in that one specific lesson 7. But again, that was largely attributed to the one student we looked at. But this same view is possible across students as well. So we could go in and look into more thoroughly into that student and see if there's been any progress as they have worked through the different assignments that they've done in a STEM way. So we're helping the student navigate collaboration and their own readiness to learn by giving you the visibility to see those things in action. And that brings us to the last petal of our flower, which should set us up for some good time for Q&A as needed. And but this piece is a pretty hefty one as well. So this is the digital notebook tool that overlays all of our experiences. So the top right is going to show kind of the student view of this. So if the student's in their design environment, so again, we see the little soccer goal going on, and they tap to open their notebook, the notebook takes over the screen as you see on the right side. Now, before we jump to the notebook, let's look back at the screen where the students are designing. If they tap on, there's a little camera button that's kind of in the bottom there. If they tap on this camera button, it grabs a snapshot of their design at that moment and pops it in. If you can see now in the top right, there's an image of their course that pops into their notebook. And this goes really well with design processes and scientific processes and collaborative processes, but it's like allows the students to track their progress and comment, observe, explain, improve what they would do, what they expect to happen if they run a test, what they did observe, documenting all of those items with a very nice and fresh picture of exactly what they're working on. And that flows into their online notebook. So they have access to that later to see their entire design process. This journal has 4 tabs on the right-hand side. So the top right is the button to open and close the journal. If you go down a little bit, the first one is the guide. That has an interactive process guide, depending on which notebook has been selected for the assignment. So our core material is around the engineering design process, but we do have notebooks that are tailored towards the collaborative process, the scientific process. We've taken the engineering design process and expanded it for a robotics setting where they spend more time on each step. So there's a lot of opportunities to use it across different subject areas, but that's all in that first tab. The second tab is the problem tab. That's going to show the information about what their objective is in the assignment that they're working on, allow them to do things like define the criteria and constraints. The third tab is where we are now, looking at the results. So I'm taking pictures of my progress. I'm logging the thoughts about it. And then the last tab is a reflect page. So that reflect page actually has a lot of open-ended reflection questions that can prompt your students to answer as they're working, or if you've given them a specific question to ask. Okay, so I'm looking at how much of the work of projects is shared as a group presentation to the whole class. Okay, so yeah, so we actually think that a lot of this material is pretty useful for if at the back end of your creative assignments, you want to add in the communication piece to do presentations, it's awesome for that. So one of the things that you can do quite easily is have, you can screencast the projects up to a presentation, have the students talk through their designs. We've seen that implemented, and the kids were so excited to share their little soccer goal courses with their classmates and explain why they had done what they had done. So that piece can share. And if you are asking them to maybe be more detailed about the process, then those pieces can be pulled out of their notebook as well and used to document. I think I tackled what Susan asked, but Susan, be sure to follow up if I didn't quite get to what you were asking on that. And then on the teacher side, what I really like about the notebook as an educator myself is that it does actually enable you to kind of do the live Q&A or discussion prompts that we like, and get everybody's results all aggregated together. So on the teacher side, you can choose how you want to see the inputs that the students are making. Do you want to see the students' notebook for one team and have it all sorted nicely? That's available. Do you want to see instead kind of the live stream feed of what they're doing at this moment? That's available too. So one of the use cases for that I really like is if you're asking a question in the classroom and you say, everybody, think of the answer, you can say, everyone go to the reflect tab and put in the reflect tab, I am confused by, and they fill it out. And then you see the whole stream of those kids' answers all together, and you can facilitate the discussion from that. I have a little example of the log here. It's showing that, and this is our Sesame Street characters, if you are familiar. The Count has entered a feeling of happy. Count has sent a positive kudos to his teammate Rosita. Count has entered into his results page. He's explaining about how he might go survey his classmates to figure out if some of his ideas are good for his design project. He also went to the reflect page and entered some details about a feeling he had. So they can, there's an input spot for that. And then his friend Snuffleupagus, I think I'm saying it right, also has been in the results page and is entered and explain, modify, and observe into his notebook. And so those are all things. This is the live feed look at it. So you can see things coming in right as they're happening synchronously. So students, it's really easy for them to go in and enter their thoughts and work. For you, you can really easily get to that in a way that supports synchronous use in the classroom, or later if you're assessing the work that they've done and seeing what their actual final project has combined up into. So, when it comes to the digital notebook, I think one of the things we are aiming for with that is to go away from a little bit the tendency to maybe be evaluated on how their design performs, but be able to evaluate students on their process towards that solution as well. So, man, I hit the 45-minute mark right on the head for Q&A. So I think that's next up is my question slide. So, Jake, what can I answer for you?
So I guess one of the things that I've noticed with regards to these great evaluation tools that you guys have in terms of how far are students progressing through their projects, how are they feeling emotionally, how do they feel about the teamwork skills going on. What would you say is the biggest benefit of having those kinds of metrics available to the instructor?
Yeah, I think we think of those as being a way for the instructors to be able to catch issues before they become big issues and support the discussion that they might need to have with students or maybe their parents about what's going on. So, I have teenagers and they always demand evidence for what I'm talking about. If I say there's an issue we need to work on. So that it just gives you so much of that very concrete evidence of how the students are progressing, how they're contributing, are they being thoughtful with their journal entries. And this actually, Jake, does give me opportunity also to say something I haven't mentioned yet, which is that in terms of that piece of what features are super helpful, we have an AI feature, everybody does, right, that we're working on, that will sit alongside the students in that interaction, not to be a large language model helper, but to actually be reading all the data about what they're doing. Are their movements scientifically principled? Are they, maybe we can put together the different teammates interactions and really generate a serious flag or a serious notification of some really good work as well. What are the highlight reel of this very involved assignment that the students are working on?
Very, very cool. Yeah, I've tried to incorporate the concept of digital design journals into some of the curriculum that I've worked on previously, and I find that that's a very useful thing to have. Not just only having the ability to collect these metrics from the same app all in one location. That's very convenient and very efficient way of measuring the readout from the students. But it's also a great way for students to be able to reflect on their learning and to kind of give them a deeper sense of ownership in the projects that they're working on. It's very cool.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes, if we kind of go back to the original piece, which was the AR, that was another thing about the AR. What's true about it is that it's a low, the floor is low, right? So you can get on board and get a soccer goal easily. You put a ramp in, the ball rolls down, you score. Woohoo! Right? So that's quick and easy. You can get it happen. But it also has a very high ceiling. There's a lot that you can do to make it extremely involved and require a lot of coordination and forethought and working on getting that all the pieces working together, as well as letting you kind of not have to worry about all the things. That's what's really nice about the AR is that, like, think about circuits. If you had kits in the classroom, you're worrying about batteries burned out. You're worrying about your alligator clips being rusty. You're worrying about people putting their tongues on it. You're worrying about the LEDs getting blown out. And there's just a million ways it can go wrong. To some degree, this allows you to streamline to some of the things that they can focus on and get really some true takeaways without all of the noise that may go on, if in a less controlled setting, but still have fun and maybe be mischievous. Actually, in our circuits, if you do a short circuit, a little fire appears. And, there are definitely the kids who spend some of the time just seeing how big of one they can make. So,
Yeah, one of the things that I really really like about particularly the electric circuit material that you have, as well as the forces of motion materials, is that it is very physics oriented. I obviously having my degrees in physics, I'm a little partial towards physics within the STEM subjects. But yeah, I really like your analogy there of having a low floor but a high ceiling. It is a very approachable thing, but the students can really get creative with what options they want to incorporate into their project.
and each of the units has a different flavor. That's what I like too. So the light and sound, which is our newest one, has the least defined like engineering success. Like this is the right answer, right? Like you scored a goal or you got your circuit to do it. But it also has the most room for just being extremely creative and really telling a story, but then using the pieces and understanding we have angles of inflection, so the waves are hitting on a panel. the panel can be different materials. What happens to the wave when it goes through the panel? And does it reflect? Where does it reflect? There's just so many things that they're observing and kind of experimenting and figuring out. And it's just really, I myself have been working with materials forever, and I can still get lost in creating something that I'm interested in, on my desktop. So it's fun.
And that unit in particular with the wave interactions, I mean, that's optics as well, and that's also another physics subject. And yeah, this seems like a really great way of breaking out of the typical, textbook and chalkboard way of teaching, and having the kids really dig in and be able to make the project their own.
Absolutely. It's allows that hands-on without without, again, all the kind of complications of the pieces, a lot of different pieces. It's very, the experience across the units too is very consistent in terms of how to get the AR to perform. So they get on the on ramp, they figure it out in circuits or maybe habitat or whichever one they've started on, and then it's very consistent across the unit. So there's that barrier of learning a new technology very low across the units. Kids figure it out and they're off to the races.
Fantastic. If anybody has any last minute questions to add in here to the chat, feel free to type in there. While people are typing in their last minute questions there, first off, again, I want to thank you, Amanda, for joining us today and for doing our guest webinar. Want to let everybody know again that we'll have another webinar coming up next month, mid-September on a Wednesday. And then in mid-October on a Wednesday, I'll be hosting a webinar based on space science. So be sure to tune in there. And if nobody has any other questions, I think we're good.
Yeah, I'm realizing that I did not put the website to explore the materials a little bit more is exploremindlabs.com. So exploremindlabs.com. You can find some our blog that has a lot of specifics on it there. You can also find us on the normal social media channels. Explore Mind Labs as well is how you find us there. And we hope to hear from you. So it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for letting me talk about what's been my life's work, apparently, for the last decade or so. And it's been a good luck to everyone as they're starting their new school years.
Very cool, yeah, and a very innovative way to teach these subjects. So let's see, what day in September? I don't recall exactly what day it is, but we'll be sure to be sending out those emails so that you have that information in the near future. Well, awesome. Thank you all very much for attending, and thank you again, Amanda. And we'll see y'all next time.